Hello, welcome to Pride in Parsippany. I'm your host, Mayor James Barberio. And today I have with me our Chief, Paul Phillips, and our Deputy Chief, Richard Pantina. Gentlemen, thank you for being on today.
Thank you for having us.
I'm going to start off with a simple question, I think it is. Can you just give us a little background, Chief? You've been on the force for how many years, and you can get into all that.
I've been on the force for 36 years. I came on in October of 1979. I was promoted to sergeant in 1987, lieutenant in 1998, captain in 2001, and deputy chief in 2011. I've been chief now for nearly 3 years, having been permanently appointed in March of 2013. During my time with the department, I've been fortunate enough to have a very diverse experience. I've worked in every division, in every rank in every division. The investigative division, the patrol division, the sports services division, the internal affairs division. And I've, as I said, I've been very, very lucky. It's been a wonderful career, and I've enjoyed it quite a bit.
Good. Deputy Chief?
Yeah, I've been a police officer for 29 years now, 26 in Parsippany, and prior to coming to Parsippany, 3 in Elizabeth, New Jersey. As the chief, I came through the ranks. The only position that I had prior to being a supervisor was planning and research, which was a great opportunity for me. And we just spoke about this before. It helped me in my career, coming through.
Good. All right, well, we're going to talk about your department. The reason why we have the show, Pride in Parsippany, is because I'm real proud of what our police department does, and all our departments do. But I think a lot of the residents out there don't really know what happens day to day and that kind of stuff like that. So if you could just start off saying, what is the role of the police department? What divisions do you have?
Certainly. Well, of course, the overarching role of the police department is to serve and protect the community. And it is our patrol division that is responsible mainly for doing that. Patrol is ultimately the function of the police department, and that is the patrol officers who respond to calls for service, whether it's a criminal act or a medical rescue. Our officers are dispatched, for example, to medical rescues before the emergency medical services, the EMS people, are dispatched, because our officers are on the road and can arrive more quickly in most instances. And our officers, therefore, are trained extensively in first aid and so forth, beyond the things that people might normally assume they would be trained in, which would be the criminal law and investigating criminal acts. That's what people assume the police do exclusively, but it's really not. We are a service organization, and we involve ourselves, as we should, in the community as much as possible. Speaking of the EMS element, the emergency medical element, one of our officers was dispatched to a local restaurant recently, and for a choking baby. And because of her medical training that we provided, the township provided her, she was able to dislodge food that was trapped in the baby's mouth and save the baby's life. That's the sort of thing that our officers do, although, again, most people assume that the police are simply a crime suppression unit, and that is obviously a major part of our work, but it is not exclusively what we do.
Now, I know you have the Detective Bureau.
Yes.
And we've been reading a lot about the Detective Bureau lately, doing a great job actually out there in the community. You have anything to add to that, with how important it is to the town to have that Detective Bureau?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I should back up a little bit and explain, because again, most people aren't aware of this, of the configuration of the police department. We have the patrol division, which I just discussed at length, and we have the investigative division, or the detective bureau, as it's commonly referred to. And we have the support services division. And these 3 divisions work together to ensure the community's safety. But to specifically address your question about the investigative division, well, that is an integral part of what we do. It's extremely important, and it is the detectives that will follow up, for example, on an investigation of a burglary, or credit card theft, or quality of life issues such as vice, drugs, prostitution, which is sadly pervasive everywhere in our society. And we aggressively pursue these things. And it's our detectives that do it. And in fact, to illustrate some of the work that the investigative division has done, a few years ago we had a woman abducted in Parsippany. She was from out of town. The people that did it were from out of town. It was a very difficult case. This was an elderly woman who was tied up, thrown in the trunk of her car, and left in very cold temperatures where she could have died. It was an extremely vicious and inexcusable crime. Our detective bureau, our investigative division, was able to follow through with just basic detective work, beating down leads, following up on various bits of information they were able to provide. And in fact, at the time, Captain Pantina actually effected the arrests in another community here in New Jersey. And I'm very proud of that particular event because it was very difficult, very complicated, but our investigative division followed through vigorously and was able to bring these people to justice. And they're now, they've been sentenced, haven't they?
Oh yes, they've been sentenced. They were doing crimes in multiple states.
Yeah, they
were all put together by our detectives. You know, once we wound up with the arrest, we contacted other states, and everybody, you know, pooled their resources together.
Well, look at that. Now let's talk about the traffic division, because I know when I became the mayor, we've had, you know, a lot of things the state threw our way, 2% cap, and we got to a point. Well, before we get to the traffic division, we got to the point where we got down to 87 police officers, which is very alarming as a mayor, and I know as a chief and a deputy chief. And now we're starting to move up to where we should be, because the number one goal always is to protect and serve and to make sure that our residents are safe. And but now that, and I'll say that we just not promote it, we just swore in 8 police officers that are desperately needed. I mean,
yes,
in
they are.
a town like Parsippany. I got to say, I give accolades to the police department, because when we were down 87, we still did the basic things that needed to be done. But going forward, though, I think we need to really look into the public safety of this community, and we need to really staff that police department the way it needs to be staffed. So that being said, we went from 87 to 101 now.
Yes.
101. And both of you, what was your feeling when you got to that point where you would know better than any of us, any council member, any mayor? What was it like to know that, hey, listen, any moment something can happen and we're understaffed?
Well, there were mixed feelings. Fear was part of it, because I live in Parsippany and have lived here for 40 plus years. Concern for the community. I know I had people calling me, asking me to do what we would normally consider to be simple tasks that we could do immediately, that I was unable to send anyone to because we didn't have anyone. Right. We were becoming a reactive police department, like Camden, or we never got to that point, but we were far too reactive to problems in the community, whereas we want to be, and we are becoming more and more proactive, to reach out to the community, to analyze trends, criminal trends and so forth, and deploy our personnel accordingly. But when you've got 87 officers for a town the size of Parsippany, it's dangerous. It's dangerous for the community and for the officers themselves.
And I guess what a lot of residents, I mean, they do understand, but Parsippany is big when it comes to square miles, 25.2 square miles. That is a large area to try to patrol over a course of 24/7. One thing, and I'll bring this up to you, both of you now, that I'm looking into as the mayor, is to be able to have a patrol unit up in Route 10 area. and that's something we'll talk about as it goes on. I do want to give credit to the council because they did. I guess they have an understanding now more so that we needed to beef up our police department. So we had the eight new hires, and I'm looking forward to them getting on the road ASAP. But one thing I'll say about the Parsippany Police Department, ladies and gentlemen, is this: outstanding during two major hurricanes. I mean, those were trying times, not just for the town, but for also our workers who just were so really overworked when you look at it. But it didn't matter. They wanted to do what was right for the township. But you guys played everybody, all our volunteers, all of our paid, everybody played a large role. But the police department really pretty much ran the whole emergency part of it. So I would like the residents to know that was, and we learned from the first hurricane, then going into the second hurricane, because you learn. And I don't want to learn any more, believe me.
No. Yeah, we've had enough lessons.
Yeah, we don't need to have any more hurricanes, because when we seem to get them, we don't just get mild ones. We get the ones that But that had to be one of the toughest times to patrol a town, was Hurricane Sandy, because you had no power. And what are your thoughts?
No gas.
Yeah.
The lines at the gas stations, which was going throughout the state of New Jersey, but we're affected because we're large.
Right.
We're a large municipality. It was very trying, but like you said, the volunteers, the officers put in a lot of time, sacrificing going home to their families, to be in the township and work. It was a learning experience that we'll never forget, obviously, but it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. And you saw how the rest of the departments in the town worked together.
Right.
OEM, DPW, everybody had a part in it, and everybody was communicating with each other. It was really a testament to the administration to get all of that together.
The team you brought together.
Right.
Yeah, we worked together very well. I won't ever forget that. Nobody was going home. I mean, that was, and what was so great about it, the thing that really stuck in my mind the most was, our goal was to protect our community and our residents and any surrounding residents, because a lot of things that Parsippany does outside the scope of just Parsippany, we have, we sewer East Hanover, Montville, and water, So there's so much going on at that time that, I don't know how we kept it together, but we did, and I remember we got to the point where the fuel, we were so low. And I'm not plugging for a commercial here, but when Wawa's pulled through,
sure, they really helped.
They came in. I mean, we were like down to 800 gallons, and that would have not even lasted us the weekend. And then they came in, because we had a tough time getting the fuel because they had to go get it in the dock areas, and that was underwater. So and that was a coordination between Wawa's and the police department that I remember, which was great. But let's talk about one thing that I like to emphasize as a mayor, that the police department, I think, does well, and we're going to expand that, is community outreach. I know that we have the Citizens Police Academy, and we've discussed the Explorers program, Junior Explorers program, and I want to get those things off the ground. But you deal with you deal a lot with neighborhoods, so you have this neighborhood associations, and explain how you go out to some of these associations and you have meetings with them and you train them in the neighborhoods.
Well, if I might, we spoke before about being down to 87 officers. These are the areas that get affected.
Right.
I know you mentioned traffic. We were down to one person in traffic.
I know. And,
now we're up to 7.
Right.
So that's where it comes in. Now that we're up to 101 officers with the hiring of these 8 officers, this is where we're going to be more out in the community. We'll be in touch with the different community groups, the Rotary, the Kiwanis, the schools. We'll be out there, and we'll have officers there accessible to the community, and that's a big part. And because we have the extra manpower, that's the only way we can do it.
All right. Well, I'll say one more thing. I mean, and we'll get back to the community outreach, because this is stuck in my mind because you said something. School resource officers, and that's going to be a separate show. As the mayor, after you had Sandy Hook over there in Connecticut, and as a mayor, you want to protect your kids, everybody in the community, And I really have a strong belief that in order to do that, we need to be partners with the schools, with the Board of Education. We need to be able to work together with them in a shared service type of a format where we control the public safety in the schools when it comes to our kids, our children, I should say. And I've always been a firm believer of that, and we've always been restricted by dollars. But I think we have something good that's going to happen between the Board of Education and between the township, because our number one goal is to keep everybody safe. And the fact is this: if we can't be involved, and I can't see how it can work, and we need to be involved in the schools in a good, positive way. Because I see that when we had the DARE programs, I see how the kids look up to police officers. I know when I go to the schools and how they're so mesmerized by just being a mayor. But the fact is this: I want us to be there more as partners with the school, Board of Education and with the township and with the police department. So, but that would be for another show. But if you want to give one little plug, that would be great.
Well, I would like to discuss the SROs and our relationship with the Board of Education and the student body in general. The SRO program is probably the most effective program that I've seen as a police officer in 36 years. The SROs, that's School Resource Officer, the SROs are able to cultivate and develop relationships with the students, right, so that they're able to head off problems before they become criminal issues. Or if something does get out of control and become a criminal issue, the SRO is right there, and the SROs are detectives. They're able to deal with issues. This has a positive effect in several areas. The fact that you've got a police officer right there on the school grounds to deal with issues as they arise is very helpful. And also, we, as I said earlier, we have this relationship with the students. So we're able to head off problems. It's just a tremendous program on a lot of levels. And I know you'd mentioned the DARE program. I was a DARE officer in the early 90s with children from kindergarten to 5th grade, and I was subsequently invited to 2 weddings of the kids from the 5th grade. My point is that it's an intergenerational relationship with the police, a positive relationship, and that can only work for all of our benefit.
Right. Well, I know we have to wrap up. We're coming to that time, but before we do wrap up, I just want to say I want to thank the both of you for being here today. It's important that our community knows who you are, and we're gonna really delve into the community as we go forward. I'm committed to the police department. I'm sure you guys know that.
Yes, we do.
I have a very good relationship with a lot of the men and women there, and as well as you guys. And I want to keep that up because if you don't work cooperatively together, things just can go. But I will say this: the deputy chief, he didn't bring my coffee today, so usually he brings me a cup of coffee. I didn't get that, but that's okay.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, I'd like to thank you again for tuning in to Pride in Parsippany. And I'd like to thank Chief Phillips and Chief Pantina for being here today.
Thank you.
Until next time, God bless you, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.